And welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show here on this Thursday. Normally he's here with us on Wednesdays, but you know what? When you've got coaching changes and the like and all kinds of crazy things happening, our guy was kind enough to push it back a day, still hop on with us and give a little insight and wisdom into the happenings of life, if you will. Mr. Aaron James Hawk, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, good to be with you guys. You guys are looking great. Schlegs, your traps are looking giant as always.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I'll try to make a hot call. I don't know. I should go just listen to those and see if I can replicate it or do something for every time you come on. What have you been up to lately? You wearing the same clothes? You got the cargo pants from Walmart on right now, or what?
I don't not have those on right now, but I will be wearing them shortly. Yeah, I got 3 different colors of those cargos from Walmart. I will be going back there to get some more clothes. They figured it out, man. I'm just doing the normal thing. I do have my black shirt on again. I'm pretty consistent, I guess, when it comes to things like that. So I can be pretty boring and consistent on those things. But I'll tell you what, man, Bob, I know you're going to the game, I believe, this weekend, Oregon. How pumped are you guys?
Well, I was supposed to head out there. Things changed given the hurricanes and the guy we're going to travel with. I guess he has some stuff down in the Carolinas and Florida, so he had to pull out. So I'm going to be watching at home, which I'm kind of excited about. I wanted to go to the game. It was going to be a great environment. It's a trek out there going to Eugene. If not, you have to fly into Portland. It's an hour-and-a-half drive. There's not a whole lot of hotels out there. And then on top of that, there's Red River at 3:30. There's USC and Penn State earlier that day. There's going to be a number of other good games. So I want to make sure, AJ, I get a chance to kind of watch everything. Is there a way that you're going to be consuming this game? You watch it with the family? You got a watch party? What's the process here?
Yeah, I'm going to be watching with the family. The kids are very excited for this one. I don't know if anyone's going to stop over and watch it with us. We will see. But I tell you what, these nice, awesome fall football days, there's been some awesome Saturdays. We got my daughter usually has basketball games. We'll go out play in those and then come and whenever we get home, we get to watch everything. It's a great time of year right now. I love the month of October, man.
What's the best part? Since you mentioned those basketball games, what's the best part of the basketball games? The little AAU travel circuit. You get some nice parents in there. I'm sure in gyms, a little hot. Everybody gets juiced up. Some bad calls. I mean, I heard it gets a little spicy.
It can get some of those bigger tournaments. We've been to I had a big tournament last year, and there was cops called, all kinds of situations. Multiple people hauled away. My parents actually came to that game. I was watching a whole interaction kind of.
Did you get arrested?
No, my mom did not get arrested this time. I don't think she ever has been. I don't know, at least on the record. Who knows? But yeah, I was watching this all kind of play out right in front of me. This argument, I watched it escalate, and I slowly started grabbing my daughter and the rest of the team. Like, hey, let's just come over. Yeah, let's go stand over here on the other side of the gym. And then, boom, people are jumping on each other's backs. There was a ref involved. It was fun to watch. I don't think anyone got seriously hurt, but all of a sudden you go outside and there's 15 cop cars.
Were you coaching this squad?
No, this was a travel AAU. I was not coaching this squad. I didn't have really anything like that. I coached my daughter in 5th and 6th grade basketball. I didn't have any huge interactions or issues like that.
It's just situational awareness. I mean, you're over there just scoping all this out. I want to get your perspective on this because I think sometimes parents haven't played at a high level. We have the all-time leading tackler for the Green Bay Packers. You're at an AAU tournament. You're just watching this go down. What are you thinking about right now? What I want to know what's besides the fact that you had enough awareness to see the situation and hey, girls, let's just mosey on over here before it escalates. But what are you thinking about when parents just start talking, whether it's about the ref, whether it's about coaching? What is running through AJ Hawk's mind right then?
A lot. I usually try to not say anything. But it's people are nuts, man. People are crazy at times. And sometimes I'm amazed that they're not sometimes that people aren't embarrassed for the crazy loud things that they'll say at times, whether it be, I've been
your wife included in that?
No, she tends to stay somewhat quiet in there. She's not going to sit there and yell and freak out in the refs, at a 5- and 6-year-old basketball game, which I have seen happen a little bit where when my little guys were playing a church basketball league, basically, and my wife was coaching and people are getting upset at these refs. We have 12-year-old kids reffing the game and they don't call anything. The majority of it, the kids are picking the ball up and running a football down the sideline and people are yelling at them to call travel and all this stuff. I'm like, are you guys not what? First off, we're in a church gym right now, A. and these kids are like 6 years old. They're not calling traveling, bud. Like, let's just get over it. We can move past it. It's pretty amazing, man. It's fun to watch, though.
Listen, Church League basketball, Great Western Forum, Lakers, Celtics, Game 6. I mean, it's all the same age. You got to bring the intensity, bring the juice. I know that's how you were raised, win at all costs, like, the Hawks and Mighty Ducks, dude. I mean, you were all about it. Schlegs, win if you can, cheat if you must, always win. It's not worth winning if you can't win big. I mean, you were talking about getting that tattooed on your arm there for a little bit to kind of show the kids what you were all about.
Well, Schlegs, I would love to watch Schlegs maybe at a baseball game or something. I'm sure Schlegs can kind of stay out of it a little bit, but I'm sure Schlegs would jump in there at times, wouldn't you?
I don't. You know what? I do not. Actually, I would just say
you took that dude down on the field. Come on.
It doesn't matter. That was not – first off, no.
Is that kid paralyzed? Is that kid okay, Schlegs? Are you sure?
No, he's completely fine. He's an engineer in Chicago somewhere
doing
great things. Doing great things. I would say this, like, I help with – junior high football, and the things that I hear from the stands of like they're totally out of our control. Guys, hey, it's more like this. Parents, are you taking your kid to practice every single time? Because now all of a sudden, like, why isn't my kid playing? Kid doesn't show up to practice. Oh, why isn't he getting better? Kid hasn't been to practice. Like, what do you expect? They just expect people just to be developed. I can't stand I can't stand it. What do? I don't say anything, or I'm not there. I just tell Steph, like, move away, because she ain't saying nothing. But sometimes I will go say, like, hey, I will give them just some perspective. Like, hey, listen,
the parents,
this is not. Yeah, I might, if somebody starts throwing some real nuggets out there, I'm like, hey man, let me just give you some perspective. And they don't know me down in Florida. They don't know any of the things that I've done, but I don't mind dropping it. But I do it with respect.
I believe it.
Well, you've got the double tribal, Schlegs, so they're respecting that. And we both know, all three of us, that you're coaching there with the tank top on, which is obviously going to be the best part. So there's a level of intimidation. You may or may not have a pit bull like chained up to your truck outside, ready to go at all times. Gas station ready. But those are the big games. And we got a big game out here in Oregon. It's just like, look at your perspective. Big games, routine. I know that you were an intense guy before games. You play with a lot of passion. I mean, you got to try to knock dudes' helmets off. You flipped your coach off once during a game in the NFL. Like, leading into a big game, what was this thought process like for you?
Man, I bet the guys are pumped. I would be juiced. I know the whole traveling with different time zones, all that, going to the West Coast. I think it's a great opportunity. Like, we know, hey, if they want to win it all, you want to go through this playoffs and you want to win it all, like, you got to be battle tested. This is awesome. Like, what an awesome opportunity. We know the atmosphere is going to be crazy out there. And I think when you can go, you guys know, like, when you go into somebody's house and it's all this hype leading up to it, all this and all the hoopla, and you can go get a win, like, that does so much for your team. I feel like how awesome that feeling is when the clock's ticking down, you have the game in hand, going around hugging each other, hugging coaches on the road. The crowd is stunned. They're quiet. They're filing out. Like, that's what builds a team, I think. I hope that's what happens this Saturday.
Yeah, when you're going to a game like this, let's talk about your preparation, because 2 versus 3, it's what we hope for, right? It took some time for Oregon to get back because they weren't really showing everything that they're capable of. They started to play significantly better. Talk about your preparation going into a big game like this. Are you doing some things more? Is it just you're relying upon the practices and what the coaches are giving you? How would you approach a game like this just individually?
Yeah, I think everyone I'm sure majority of college guys all have their own little routine that they do outside of whatever the coaches are doing. But I think for big games, the biggest thing that I tried to figure out, I was like, all right, I need to find like 1 or 2 little things extra, maybe like on film, or that I see that we could possibly take advantage of, defensively, like when you could take a shot here, when you shouldn't take a shot, like things that they may tip off, but also, like, don't make it more than it is and don't freak out. Like, there's a tendency sometimes of a team, if you've never been behind before, you've never been in a tough situation, you got to see how your team's going to respond. So let's say you're out on the road and you're in a game and they're up 7-0, it's pretty easy for people to freak out and coaches to start panicking. And everyone's looking around trying to look for somebody else to make a play when like, hey, we're fine. Like, we're going to be okay. So I think that was the biggest thing sometimes. The good thing about big games, though, they kind of even everything out to where the coaches, like, level of intensity throughout the week, the players match or kind of exceed it. And the coach doesn't have to sit there and tell you like, hey, don't take these guys lightly. You guys take them lightly. They're going to beat you, even though you're 48-point favorites. Like those are the weeks, I think, when coaches and players really have to be on it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, is there, when you're playing in one of these games, like you said, the emotion is so like intense at the beginning. Is there a point age where like it starts to mellow out for you? Like, is it a couple plays in? Is it a series in? Like, when do you kind of start to settle in for these big games?
I think after hopefully the first series, that by like if I had my choice, it would be like, okay, let's find a way to either get a 3-and-out or get them off the field, make them punt on this first drive, have a fast start. And everyone knows, like, you need a little bit of contact, I think, to settle into the game. Yeah. So the first play, you can maybe take on a center or a guard. Yeah. Head and hands on somebody and get in on a tackle early. That always helps. And like just running off the sideline. Usually, like after that first series on defense, hopefully it's a 3-and-out. You make them punt, whatever, or turnover is awesome. Going on the sidelines, and then you're like, okay, you can kind of sit down with each other and talk with the D coordinator. Okay, hey, we got it. Like they're not superhuman. They're humans just like us. Let's stick to our plan. We'll be fine.
How many sets of manual buys and tries are you hitting before this game?
Man, it's a long flight, so you gotta work that lactic acid out on the flight. I'm doing a lot of manual neck as well in honor of Schlegs. I love doing manual neck. Keep that thing limber. Try to build. I always want a bigger neck. We all do since I was like 8 years old or 5 years old. Probably been trying that. What's that?
Thick cylinder.
Yeah, it's what we need. We're protecting our brain by doing that. But yeah, you got to hit, like, hopefully you got some good bands in the locker room, Bob, where, hey, you're going to go ahead and stretch. No, absolutely not. I'm doing buys and tries before we go out. I got to feel good.
How, have you, with that, you get the buys, you get the tries, you get juiced up a little bit, you start feeling good, you get that lather, get that sweat going, Age. Like, that's a pretty nice feeling. Have you ever asked Pat how he's able to hop up on that stool pregame and stand on that thing as it's a swivel stool, and somehow he hasn't managed to fall down and hurt himself yet?
Yeah, he does it a lot. Like, he has a very similar chair that he does it from his studio in Indianapolis, and it's one of those tall chairs as well. I don't know, because if you fall, there's no easy fall. You're going down hard. He does it on game day. You see, they try to Saban will reach over, try to support the back of his chair a little bit, maybe, but he's got some great balance. Obviously, he's a great athlete, but man, I know I don't like heights. That might even be too high for me if I tried to stand up there.
Now, Pat's got some great proprioception. It's probably something that he's working on all the time. In a game like this, Age, defensively, what are you looking for as far as what the Buckeyes have to do, what you thought your defense had to do going into a big game like this?
Man, so it feels like now with where the defense is and everything, like if they give up a touchdown, it's like a horrible game. Oh, what are you going to do? Like, this guy, they're not as good as we thought. Like, don't let that creep into their brains. They know, like, yeah, we want to pitch a shutout every single night, but early on, I want to see how they're finishing plays. I know I talked to you guys after the first game of the season. I just love the defense, how they're tackling guys through the ground. Like, there's multiple guys coming from all angles, using the proper leverage. Like, that's what I want to see early. Like, I don't think the environment's going to be too big for them at all. I think they're going to be very excited, but I want to see that D-line. I want to see some 4-man pressure early on, because if you can get some 4-man pressure early in a game, like, that offense is going to be scrambling the rest of the night.
Absolutely. Age, we appreciate the time, sir. I know you got to go hop on there with Pat. Enjoy it. Enjoy the game this weekend. We'll catch you up here soon. Appreciate the time.
All right. Thanks. See you guys.
See you, bro.
That's AJ Hawk, all-time leading tackler in Packers history. Good friend, great dude, and great father, and protector of junior high girls at AAU tournaments. So if there's something going down, folks, you make sure that you stay around Age. He's always gas station ready because he's keeping bands in his car to stay pumped up. Transfer portal news. NCAA finally put some more guidelines around this. We'll get into that next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
Kentucky Derby, as Authentic takes them around the far turn. Tis the Laws making his move now, and they're into the stretch. These two stride for stride. Authentic, tis the Law. Here's the wire. Authentic. Tip has won the Kentucky
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
Welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show. And as always, our first segment was brought to you by Export Mouth Guards. You want to protect what matters most. They're trusted by professional athletes and designed by NHL team dentists. Export Mouth Guards are scientifically tested to absorb high-impact hits, protecting both your grill and your brain. Export Mouth Guards feature 3 layers of custom protection, patented use of carbon fiber that they 3D print to your smile. That means better protection, better performance, max comfort, clear communication, better performance. So you focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Go to exportguards.com/Bobby to save 15%. Protect what matters most with Export. All right. So the transfer portal has been wild lately.
Wild.
A lot of things going on. Dudes in and out, bouncing around. They finally got some stuff, some guidelines fit in here. And I think it's good. And everybody wanted to see that. We're going to throw this up, Pat. Adam Freeman tweeted out from Rivals. The transfer portal window changes, and the national letter of intent changes are officially official, if you didn't need to be redundant to make sure that we knew. Winter transfer window is going to be December 9th to December 28th. Tightened that up a little bit. Spring transfer window, which used to be like 30 days or 20 days, they've tightened that up as well. That is from April 16th to the 25th. And now also the national letter of intent is greater than the financial aid agreements. We'll break into that last part. When you see these window Schlegs tightened up a little bit, kind of what hits your mind about that?
What hits my mind about it is depth going into the playoff for those 12 teams, 1. 2, coaches having to, while they're trying to prepare staff, while they're trying to prepare for a potential run or a bowl game or whatever, has to be spending time somewhat re-recruiting their own recruits during that time frame. I'm interested to see how that plays out in a program. Who's going to be doing that? Man, that's just a difficult window. I liked it to where it was kind of after the season, but then after the season, now it's so long that you're already
after whose season? There are teams that are done, Schlegs. I mean, a third of the teams.
But here's the thing: the teams that are still playing. Well, the teams that are still playing, that's the portal, right? Like you're gonna know your roster. Again, I just go back and look at what the transfer portal and the NIL and all these things are, and you take it and you look at the NFL. It's just roster management. So I'm looking at the teams that are in the college football playoff, the top 12, their roster management is going to look different. They ain't bringing anybody else on right now because they're focusing on what they're doing. They're basically going to be re-recruiting and marketing their own players to stay. So at least they know what they got along with their freshman classes going into the following season. And then now you have this other window of April of which spring ball has passed or it hasn't. Like, where does that spring ball window have to now finish?
It's different for some teams. Like, I remember Ohio State, like they were done or just about done. I mean, there were teams on the West Coast that are on quarters like we were, Schlegs, that they started their spring ball in April when they got back for fall spring quarter. And it was like right in the middle. Like you had a bad week of practice, like deuces, I'm in the portal, I'm out. So a much different paradigm for different teams. And so the season's one thing because everybody starts on Labor Day and they kind of go the same, and how far you go is up to you and how good you are. But spring ball is going to be determined by your school schedule and academic calendar and somewhat by your coaches. So there's a much different work at play. And they had talked about getting rid of the spring portal window. I would have been for that. Unfortunately, they didn't. And so this is still the mess that you have.
Well, and I think, and here's what's different about it too, Bob, is I don't recall when Seth or Caleb or Will came to Ohio State, but I do know that they were there
It was in January.
Yeah, exactly. But it was in January. So, like, again, we got those guys post their season playing in college football playoff CFP games. Then they came in this winter transfer portal. Those guys are not going to be eligible based on this until April 16th to the 25th. That hampers that, I would say, for a score. I'm just taking Ohio State in consideration for that, because once your season is done, how are we going to fill the gaps? How are we going to do roster management? Where's our development? What guys are the guys on the roster? Because those guys aren't thinking about transferring. They're thinking about completing their season. And to get the quality of guys like we got this last year, that's going to be at a detriment, meaning like they're still playing. And now this portal window is closed. I have to now wait till April 16th. And the biggest part of that is
the thing is, guys can – you can get people out of the portal at any time. You just have to make a decision on getting in. So you can pull players from it at any point. But the reality is, like, they have all of that time. Like, do you really need – if you're going to get in and you decide
do you need that many times?
Do you need 3 weeks? And the reality, people are like, well, everybody's seasons ends at a different time. Well, there are exceptions. So guys who play later, they get an extra week. Like, you get a week after your final game. So guys that are in the first round of the playoffs or second or third championship, whatever it is, they get another week. So I don't understand. It still seems too long to me. They need to tighten it down. Either you want to be at your school or not, getting in there, fielding all these different questions. Like, if you're getting in there, like, how many visits do you need to take? You know, like that's what you should have an idea of kind of where you want to go and what you want to happen. 10 days is plenty for me. All right. There's another part of that story. If we can toss this up here, Power, start talking about NLI, National Letter of Intent. So moving forward, written offers of athletic aid will replace National Letter of Intent. In the previous formula for determining signing dates, they'll be applied to those written offers. So the signing dates are going to be the same thing. Transfer prospects may be signed by a new school once their names are permissibly entered into the transfer portal. After a prospect signs a written offer of athletics aid, other schools that offer athletically related financial aid will be prohibited from recruiting communications with that prospect. So if you were recruiting them, you were offering them aid, someone else offers them, you're giving them basically scholarship money, scholarships. Boom. Once you sign with the one school and commit to that, you can't talk to anybody. The other schools can't contact you anymore. I think that's a pretty basic, standard, and sound practice to prohibit some of this wishy-washiness. And I know we had some of the issues with guys and what was promised, what was to them, and then they hear better offers other places, and then they want to get back in. I think this helps alleviate some of that.
What it is basically like, hey, we can offer you this amount of money. We can offer you this amount of money. I'm going to go to school A. All right. Oh, we didn't get that guy that we already had NIL money promised to. We're going to take that. We're going to dump it in your bucket. Come now. We can offer you more than that school.
Yeah.
That's what this alleviates. I want to go back to that last point, Bob. I think a very easy solution to that would be, hey, you have 10 days post your last game, whether or not you're going to be in the portal.
Yeah.
That should be it. That should be it.
Poof, David Copperfield, Schlegs. That would be an easy solution, easy suggestion. Sometimes the easiest things, well, they don't seem to be all that easy. But they'll get it figured out eventually, hopefully, as we continue to move forward. All right, coming up next, we got our headlines. College game day. Where are they going to be? Find out next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, now it's time for our headlines. Headlines are brought to you by our friends over at Affinity Whole Health. They offer personalized treatment plans to help people feel better. Whether you're struggling with weight loss, low energy, muscle loss, poor sleep, they can help you with all of it. Been a patient there for 7 years. I keep telling you about them because they are great. Affinity Whole Health provides expert guidance for you to safely reach your health goals. They've got Ohio covered. They're in Columbus. They're in Cleveland. They are in Indianapolis. Heck, they're even in Chicago. And they're best of all, they're online. You go to affinityWholeHealth.com, schedule a free consultation, go meet with them. They'll figure a program out, then customize it to your needs, and then they ship everything right to your house. It's so easy. That's what got me. I'm trying to save time and feel good. So go to affinityWholeHealth.com. All right, Schlegs.
Yeah.
Game day.
Yeah.
Big deal. Where's game day going to be this week, Schlegs? Well, let's toss it up there. Game day will be at Ohio State versus Oregon. Going to be an early morning for them out there. Does that juice this up even more for you?
No, it's already a big game. It's 2 versus 3. But hey, no, it's great that College Game Day is going to be there. It's great that they're going to have a emphasis on Oregon. And again, guys, this is Oregon's first big time game in the Big Ten. Like, it's great. Like, it's a big deal because of the new conference. And then you also couple that with, you have the number 2 team in the country and the Ohio State Buckeyes coming to Eugene. We talked to Jeff Schwartz the other day. They got like 60,000 fans there. We got 110, but guess what? I know for a fact it's going to be crazy. I'm truly excited that we get to witness it. Is it a big deal? And I'm talking like, if I was a player, no.
BFB?
Right? 2 versus 3 is big enough. Like, that's all that really matters. Because to what AJ alluded to, man, it's going to be good versus good. Matchup type game. That's why you come to Ohio State.
Yeah, you feel pretty darn good about that. This matchup game, it gets the pomp and circumstance it deserves. The West Coast game days are crazy because it's super late or super early out there. So it's dark, maybe late night, students just chilling, going out, Schlegs rolling right into the game day set. And maybe, hopefully they go home and take a nap before the night festivities begin. But, you know, they're going to be there. They're going to be rocking and ready to go. All right. Our quarterback at Ohio State, Will Howard, comes in, and a lot of people, they take online classes, or they really enrolled in school to the extent that they need to be, or they just here really to play football. We'll toss this up. Will Howard actually going to class. Here's how you know going to class. Great quote out of him. I actually this semester have class at night. Don't tell my professors, but sometimes I may watch a little film in class. And that is the beauty of the machine, Schlegs. I mean, you get one of these bad boys right here. Let's pop this thing open. I mean, set it inside a book. Who knows what you're watching? Check out a little film. Like they always used to say, Schlegs, one of your favorites, one of our favorite coaches. School first, football second.
Yeah, exactly. School first, football second, Bob. And I'll say this, guys. You know what I look at that? That's called being efficient with your time. You know, I don't know necessarily. You know, it's efficient with your time, and it's also multitasking. Like, he's just preparing himself, you know, for his future in life, where you got people talking like, I got to go handle my business, and I don't necessarily know what Will is studying, but I definitely know that if we had the old iPads back in the day, Bob, and I actually visited a class, maybe
you should just skip class, just not go.
And I would watch film. Yeah, good for him, Will. Hey, Will, way to be a student athlete, because I would just go play 18 holes at, what the hell was that place called, man? I used to go out there, Bob, all the time. I forget, man. Or I went hunting, or I don't even know.
St. Albans.
Yeah. St. Albans, man, out there like Johnstown. It was like 40 minutes away. You know, I just hop in a car. I had a cart key. Golf
on Thursday mornings. Really get his mind right, be feeling good. And then Fick, AJ.
That was the off season. During the season, I would go hunt. During the season, I would go hunt.
My bad. Skip class to hunt. Spring ball, you would skip class to go play golf.
Yes.
By the way, who would you play with? Well, you just loiter out in the parking lot like a lounge lizard, waiting to see if you could leech on to a threesome and turn that threesome into a 4-banger. Papa Schlegs being the 4th dude. So definitely an interesting process that you would do.
I love Will, man. This is great.
Yeah, Will's a great dude. He's getting after it. I'm excited to see how they're going to use him. I feel like they're going to run him a little more this week, Schlegs, and we'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. But I feel like they're going to lean into his legs in the running game to be able to give him that added element, that added depth of offense.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the red zone or maybe in some third and medium, third and short. They put some of it on film last week. They did that ultimately for a reason.
And I think the other thing about Will, Bob, is the fact that he's done a great job of, one, not getting sacked. That's the offensive line, but he moves around the pocket really well. And he also knows, hey, I just got to go move the chains. I'll just take it and run. That's going to be hard for Oregon to deal with.
Yeah, come on, take the money and run, Schlegs. You always said that's your favorite part. All right. We're going to take a quick little break here. Coming up next, we've got our Tailgate Talk brought to you by Real Truck. It's one of our favorite segments every week. This week, we're going to have some questions fired at us by Pat, figure out what the answers are before we have Ben Stevens coming up at about 105, 106. It's he'll blow Schlegs' mind again. All right, there you go. Tailgate Talk coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
Building a home for the people who are worth it. Stepping out, throwing in a line, and dropping the tailgate for a picnic. And finding far-off campsites with the people you're closest to. Upgrade your truck, Jeep, or Bronco with over 1 million parts and accessories and bring your truck to life. Real Truck.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, now we're into our favorite segment, Tailgate Talk, brought to you by Real Truck, the #1 truck accessory brand in the United States with top-selling upgrades for the ultimate tailgate party in the midst of tailgate season. By the way, it's hunting season too, Schlegs. They can deck your truck out and make it hunting ready, vacation ready, do whatever you need, camping ready. Gear up for this season. Bring your truck to life like Frankenstein on Halloween at realtruck.com. All right, Pat, let's get in the game. Fire away some questions, sir.
All right, guys, lift it or leave it. We got a quick 2-pack here today, but the first one is the first weekend of October through Thanksgiving. Best time of the year for sports. Lift it or leave it.
I'm going – spring is pretty good. When you have March Madness, you get some baseball, you get the Masters, you get maybe a little bit of spring ball action in there. Late Christmassy when the NFL is kind of going, you get college football, but – I'm not a huge baseball guy, but I do like playoff baseball. So right now you've got great college matchups. You're starting to figure out who everybody is in the NFL. And you get some playoff baseball, which you can sprinkle in during the day. So I'm going to leave this. It's not the best, but it's pretty darn good.
I'll lift it because we just got football for like 50 days in a row. And you got the baseball wrapping up. You still got a little sprinkle of like, hockey's going on. You got like basketball's like starting to pick up. Yeah. I love it. Lift it.
All right, guys. Last one for me. Travis Hunter was Deion Sanders was asked in his press conference the other day, who was better in their prime, Coach Prime or Travis Hunter? Lift it or leave it.
Didn't he answer this, Pat, as far as like my time is done, like it's his time now?
Easy way out, but who you taking, Travis Hunter or Deion Sanders?
That's pretty tough. I mean, because I watched Deion do it at like peak Florida State, and then he obviously was in the NFL. And when you're a young kid, your perspective on everything changes dramatically, Schlegs. So like Deion was the greatest thing ever, and he did it for a long time. If you're to look at Deion in college versus Travis Hunter in college, they've asked Travis Hunter to do a lot more. Him and Shedeur are shouldering the load on that team, and they're only a handful of weeks in. But if they're able to finish this season like 8-4, 9-3, and dare I say like somehow make the Big 12 championship game, I would have to say that yes, it's him because he's been great at defensive back and he's been really stinking good at wide receiver. Maybe not going against quite the level of competition of Deion, but it's pretty darn impressive. So I'm going to lift this.
Yeah, I'm going to lift it too. Though Deion also played baseball, Bob. He was a multi-sport athlete. But I just think talking about prime, in their prime, like just right now in college, Travis is asked to do way more. And to your point, with either him or Shedeur out, like that team is not 4-1 right now. So I would say lift it.
All right. Well, that was Real Truck, Tailgate Talk, brought to you by Real Truck. One of our favorite segments, Pat getting in the game. Now we've got I don't know if he's our favorite guest. Schlegs, AJ's our guy, but definitely our most knowledgeable guest you will find. He will whet your beak for the college football weekend and probably help you make a couple of shekels. We've got Halloween. We're in the holiday season. Christmas is coming up. So let's start padding that bank account with our guy, Ben Stevens of Sports Grid Radio, coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, back in here to the Bobby Carpenter Show. Now pleased to welcome in our guy, Ben Stevens from Sports Grid Radio, kind enough to join us each and every Thursday to bestow some knowledge. Try not to explode Schlegs' brain, which he does each and every weekend. Give him a follow on X at Ben Scott Stevens. Does a terrific job. Ben, last weekend, we had 5 upsets of ranked as far as numbers. I know A&M was favored, obviously, to be able to get it done against Missouri, but I don't think anybody anticipated them getting it done the way that they did. Either of those 5 games, pick your 1 or 2 favorites that was probably the most surprising, or maybe one you saw coming even.
So, I thought Vandy was going to cover, guys, because Vandy has been a great underdog against power competition this year. Now a perfect 3-0 against the spread, including 2 outright victories, beating Virginia Tech the opening weekend of the year and taking Missouri to double overtime in their recent game before Alabama. So I thought Vandy might be able to keep it within the number this year. Did not expect Vanderbilt to win outright and to break down the goalpost and to send it into Broadway on Nashville on a Saturday night. One that I thought was really compelling was going to be USC on the road in Minneapolis against the Golden Gophers, because as we alluded to, it was a 3rd consecutive game for the Trojans, an indoctrination into Big Ten football. You played Michigan, you allowed 290 rushing yards. You were getting beat early at home by Wisconsin. You blanked them in the second half. Could you go up against the Minnesota team where you knew they were going to establish the run and play really sound defensively and go on the road and win that football game at the bank on a Saturday night? As we learned, not the case. Southern Cal now 1-2 straight up in its start of Big Ten play, and they have had the football forced down their throats in a way on the ground, which is huge this week, of course, as the Trojans welcome Penn State, the 4th-ranked team in the country, to the Coliseum. It's one of the few games, guys, that kind of lessens a little bit of what we all thought and had circled Saturday, October 12th as the greatest day of the entirety of the 2024 calendar. And it still is significant and fantastic. But we thought USC Penn State was probably going to be a top 10 tilt at this point a week ago. It speaks to the chaos of college football.
Well, I said this, we thought 2 weeks ago was supposed to be tremendous. This week was supposed to be phenomenal. Last week was basically the sorbet palate cleanser in that 5 or 6 course meal. And that turned out to be the best course of the entire dinner. We'll see how this week ultimately turns out. Before we you mentioned Penn State going to USC. We've got Ohio State traveling out to Eugene to take on Oregon. As we look at some of these games, we see this new Big Ten scheduling. And Notre Dame's kind of had to deal with this a little bit already because they've always traveled. But now we're seeing it more across conferences. These multi-time zone travels. In the Big Ten, you're talking 1 and 8. Now, some of that's probably talent. Yeah. In your mind, how is that impacting the handicapping of some of these games? And is that something to continue to watch for, or was that simply a talent windfall on one side or the other?
Yeah, I do think to a certain extent it's kind of just teams. Like, for instance, people brought up the one that was Indiana going to UCLA and winning and covering a number. Michigan last week in Seattle, They were the underdog. They don't have a pass game. It's not overly surprising against a sound Washington defense. They lost that game. I haven't been stunned by any of the results. And I told you, I thought USC was a little bit susceptible. That wasn't because they traveled from the Pacific time zone to the Central time zone while they lost to the Gophers. And it was a night game. James Franklin can complain that the runway in State College isn't built up enough, so they have to take luxury buses to Harrisburg. Brother, you're making $75 million a year because of the TV revenue that has expanded into this new time zone out in the Pacific Coast. So I don't really buy into it, Bobby. I think it will be a big factor for basketball, men's and women's. I think for our non-revenue and Olympic sports, it's something that is hugely impactful. For football, we're traveling out, as they do in the NFL, where time zone and travel is adjusted into these spreads on a week-to-week basis. It will be something to get used to. I don't think it swings a game by a touchdown or even more than maybe a point. And I don't think we have seen a game come down to a single point where it's really been in the balance. So I don't really take into the idea that Penn State having to travel to Los Angeles or the Buckeyes having to go to Eugene is overly difficult because of the travel schedule in the Big Ten. It's just difficult because they have to go play in vaunted coliseums of college football, and the atmosphere in Austin, as we know, is as good as you will find around the country.
Hey, we got some big games in the Big 12 as they ramp up. Teams getting beat. You got Utah, Arizona State. You got Colorado and Kansas State. You got Iowa State at West Virginia. Of those three, which has the biggest impact in the Big 12, and who you got?
Yeah, Schlegs, I think it's pretty simple. I think it's K-State, and I think it's Colorado on Saturday in Boulder. Colorado has been a public bettor's dream. You just hammer Colorado. Colorado was one of the most bet teams to win a conference championship, not just in the Big 12, but around the country this year. Some of the most exposed liability for the sports books in terms of a Big 12 championship price on the Buffs, who entered the year with a win total of 5.5, where I have spoken about this time and again. I think I've shared it with you guys. I've shared it all around the place, that if you actually remain realistic about Colorado, this program getting to a bowl game, year-over-year improvement in the 2 seasons with Deion Sanders, and 5 more wins than the year before Deion under Carl Durrell, where they won a single game and were the worst power conference team in the country, that would be revolutionary. Now the idea that they actually could contend for a Big 12 title is realistic. They're off to a 2-0 start in conference play, that wild Hail Mary to win against Baylor, and a huge 2-touchdown upset where they looked like the better team through and through against UCF, who got off to a great start. They've showed a couple of their weaknesses and flaws over the past 2 weeks. But this is a real one for Colorado. It really is. They've been a great underdog under Deion Sanders, 7-3 against the number since the start of last year, the outright victory against UCF in their most recent game, and the defense has improved. It's not great, but it has improved. 184 yards per game given up on the ground a season ago, now 156. But teams are running it so often, trying to expose CU. The defensive front has had to fight. They're only allowing just over 4 yards per carry. They have been better. So all of that to say, hugely significant and impactful game for the Big 12 title race in Boulder. I do believe that Kansas State is the right side. K-State has been exposed through the secondary this year. Of course, you're not going to find a better test in that conference, perhaps all of college football, than Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, and the rest of CU offensively. I do think K-State buckles down. My favorite bet of the game, though, Avery Johnson, the sophomore quarterback for the Wildcats, over 67.5 rushing yards. 3 quarterbacks have already hit 70-plus against Colorado, KJ Jefferson included a couple of weeks ago. He had 76 on the ground. And Avery Johnson, a guy that has had 60-plus in his last 3 games, including the huge victory over Oklahoma State, in which he only ran the football 5 times. I like Avery Johnson over 67.5 rushing yards. It's my best bet for the Colorado game on Saturday in Boulder.
All right, before we get to a couple of the Big Ten games here, Red River, maybe a little luster loss with Oklahoma losing. They're about 2 touchdown dogs. We don't know about Quinn Ewers. I'm sure that's all factored into the number right now.
Yeah.
And it's Arch Manning really isn't a downgrade significantly, if at all. What are your kind of thoughts on this one?
You know, it's really interesting, Bobby, because I would agree with you. I think it is factored into the number. I have maintained, and I still do, even after a great start for Arch a couple of weekends ago against Mississippi State, throwing for more than 320, 2 touchdowns, not a turnover, also rushing in a score. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns in the 5 games he has played in this year. Not exactly like Eli and Peyton, But Quinn Ewers is the guy. And Quinn Ewers has deserved the right to be the guy for Texas if he is healthy. If he is able to play, he will start against Oklahoma. 14.5, a very large number for the Red River rivalry. 9 of the last 10 matchups have been decided by a single score. The only one not 49-zip, Texas laying it on OU in Brent Venables' first Red River game as the head man in Norman. But in terms of how competitive this series has been, 5 times in the last 12 matchups, we have seen a team be a double-digit favorite. Now, this is more than 2 touchdowns, but at least double digits. 0-5 against the spread.
Really?
All of those double-digit favorites because of how competitive this series is. So I don't know if I'm going to lay it with Texas, but I really worry about OU, the worst offense in the SEC. I lean under here of 50.5, or if you want to be more specific, when it becomes available, Sooners team total under. Texas is a great defense. I just don't really know what Oklahoma can do with Michael Hawkins Jr., who has been the leading rusher in both of the games he has played for Oklahoma. They have no ground game outside of the quarterbacks, whether it was Jackson Arnold or Michael Hawkins Jr. This is all things that Texas knows off a bye. So is OU. I lean under, with Oklahoma not really being able to generate a ton of offense on Saturday under the watchful eye of Big Tex.
You've already talked about USC and what they got to do. Is this the weekend they buckle up, Buttercup, welcome to the Big Ten, and take down Penn State favored by 4?
Yeah, so that's the issue, right? If you look at this game, Schlegs, this should be a spot where USC should be so pissed off by what has happened their first 3 weeks in the Big Ten. And more than anything, last week losing as an 8.5-point favorite in Minnesota against the Golden Gophers. And it should be kind of that trap spot for a Penn State team that has not covered in either of its 2 Big Ten victories, despite beating Illinois by 14 in a game they were favored by 3 scores in a top 25 tilt. So this should be that sleepy spot for Penn State. USC not ranked, but we know, of course, James Franklin's record against ranked foes. USC receiving votes, they would be 26th in the country. All of that to say, I don't buy it. Listen, I've been skeptical of Lincoln Riley after all of this for Southern Cal in the Big Ten. I've been told his offense was going to revolutionize things. All right, Miller Moss had 200 yards and 2 interceptions against a Minnesota defense. Who was the best passing defense in the country? Who's the 4th best passing defense? Penn State. They're still top 10 in scoring and total defense. Tom Allen has done a sensational job with this Nittany Lions defensive crew. And for me, we didn't see Nick Singleton last week against UCLA. I think because he will be back for this matchup against USC. No props listed just yet, so we'll see his status as the week progresses. But Katron Allen has been great, and one of the big keys, guys, is Drew Allen. The numbers haven't been outlandish by any means to start Big Ten play, less than 230 in both of those games, but he's been completing the football at a 71% clip this year. You compare that to his completion percentage a season ago, 59.9%, and in their games against ranked opponents 4 times, less than 50 in 3 of the 4. He's been so much better and efficient at the quarterback spot. I don't know if I'm going to lay the 4.5 with Penn State. I'll probably either attack Katron Allen's rushing yards number or Nick Singleton's win/if it becomes available, because I still question USC's defense. And until I see it be different, like truly different, like really slow down a good Big Ten rushing offense, I'm going to have my concerns. I think Penn State's the right side, albeit on the road in what would be a peculiar, trappy, sleepy spot for the Nittany Lions.
All right, let's not bury the lead here. In the final minute, Ohio State, Oregon. Buckeyes traveling to Eugene. What do you think about that one?
Listen, first game for the Ducks as a home underdog since 2018. They won that game against Washington in overtime. Of course, these two have recent history, 2021 and C-Bus. Don't need to talk about that game all that much. For me, again, it's a 3.5-point spread for a road team in Autzen. Normally, that would not be bettable. But under Dan Lanning, Oregon is 0-2-1 against the spread as an underdog. They have not won a game outright as an underdog. And frankly, they have failed to perform even on relative expectation as an underdog. They are 1-4 against the spread this year. Their only cover against Oregon State in the Civil War. They have been better defensively the last 2 weeks, and that is huge. But against the likes of UCLA and Michigan State, who they held to 60 rushing yards or less, who was the one offense, maybe at least on the ground, you could compare to what Chip Kelly and the Buckeyes do? That would be Boise State. And Ashton Genty ran for nearly 200, and the Broncos put up 34, and Oregon survived as a 19.5-point favorite with a last-second field goal. I'm laying the 3.5 with Ohio State, and I will be attacking Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson and some of the rushing yards numbers for Ohio State on Saturday night.
Absolutely, Ben. We appreciate your time. You are one of the best. Check him out at Sports Grid Radio. Give him a follow on X. Ben Scott Stevens, thank you very much again, sir. Greatly appreciate it. All right, coming up next, we'll wrap up the show here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, Schlegs, Ben, blew your mind as always. I know you love the info about Oregon. Your final 30 seconds here. What we got?
No, 30 seconds is this, man. Kansas State, Colorado, that's going to be a huge game. I love the fact that he's just looking at how teams have ran against people and what they've done and like betting those other small prop bets. Like I would never get in the weeds of that, but I love his take. I love what he talked about for the Buckeyes. It makes me feel good about where the Ohio State Buckeyes are this weekend.
Well, it should. Listen, we'll do a big deep dive tomorrow, efforting Josh Perry. Hopefully we'll have Joshua on with us as he's on the NBC desk on Saturday night, talking about the game he was here in Columbus, interviewing Emeka and JJ Smith. So be sure to check him out as well. That's it for today's show. Like, subscribe, leave comments. We appreciate it. Tune in next time on the Bobby Carpenter Show.